Quick question. When did you last look at the beneficiary designations on your retirement accounts? If your answer is when I opened the account, or worse, I'm not sure, this video is for you. In last week's video, we talked about financial infidelity and the money conversations that don't happen in blended families. Today, we're going to talk about a related risk, one that's purely technical, has nothing to do with trust or intentions, and can cause irreversible harm to your family. Your will does not control your retirement accounts or your life insurance. And in a blended family, that gap can quietly undo everything you intended. April, let's help people understand what a beneficiary designation is and why it matters so much.
Good. When you open a retirement account, 401k, IRA, life insurance policy, you name a beneficiary. That's a person who receives that asset when you pass away. And here's what most people don't realize. That designation is a legally binding instruction that exists completely outside of your estate. It bypasses your will entirely. If your will says everything goes to my current spouse, but your 401k from a previous job still has an ex-spouse listed, that account goes to your ex-spouse. The will has no power to override it. The only thing that changes it is going back and updating the form.
And this isn't a theoretical risk. In blended family financial planning, outdated beneficiary designations are one of the most common issues that surfaces when someone actually takes the time to look. An ex-spouse, a deceased parent who was never removed, a distribution to children that no longer reflects what the person intended. Once someone passes, that designation is permanent. There is usually nothing a family can do to change it at that time.
Which is why the beneficiary audit is one of the first things we walk through with blended family clients. It's one of those areas where even a small amount of attention can prevent a significant amount of pain.
April, why is this a bigger risk for blended families specifically?
A few reasons. First, by definition, blended families involve prior relationships, which means prior account openings with beneficiary designations that reflected a completely different life. The more transition someone has been through, the more likely it is that old paperwork is sitting out there, untouched, not reflecting who they are today. Second, in a blended family, there are more people whose interests matter. A current spouse, biological children, stepchildren, and even can be an ex-spouse. If accounts were set up to reflect life before remarriage, the new family structure is essentially invisible to those documents. And third, this surprises a lot of people, it's not just retirement accounts. Bank accounts with payable on death designations, brokerage accounts with transfer on death designations, life insurance, annuities, in some cases, real property, how it's titled. All of these can transfer completely outside of a will, and most people have no idea how many of their assets fall into that category.
So when someone comes in and we ask them to list their assets and then ask which of those assets their will actually controls, the number is almost always smaller than they expect. And in a blended family, that gap can have real consequences for the people they love most. So what should families actually be looking at? Walk us through what a beneficiary review involves.
A thorough review looks at every account that has either a beneficiary designation or a titled ownership structure. That means all retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, old employer plans that were never rolled over, all life insurance policies, annuities, brokerage accounts with transfer on death instructions, bank accounts with payable on death instructions, and how real property is titled and whether it passes outside the estate. Yes, all of that. And we're not just checking names. We're asking whether the structure still makes sense for the family structure today. Naming a spouse as primary and my children as contingent sounds straightforward, but in a blended family, which children are included, which are not? What happens if the primary beneficiary remarries before those assets pass further? The name on the form is only the starting point.
And this is worth revisiting after any major life change, a remarriage, a birth, a death of someone named on the form, any form, a significant shift in a relationship. Any of those is a trigger to go back and look. As your financial director, this is exactly the kind of thing we track for clients so it doesn't fall through the cracks.
Jerry, I want to touch on something briefly that connects here. Sometimes updating a beneficiary designation isn't the complete answer.
You're right, April. There are situations in blended family planning where the better answer is a more coordinated structure, one where a financial planner, an estate planning attorney, and sometimes a CPA are all working together to make sure that assets end up where they're intended under terms that actually reflect the family's wishes. The point for today is that a solid plan for a blended family requires alignment across multiple layers: the will, the beneficiary designations, the account titles, and in some cases, the legal documents that govern distribution. If those layers aren't coordinated, the plan can break down in ways no one anticipated. Part of our role is to make sure all of those pieces are telling the same story.
That's a good segue into next week's video, where we're going to talk specifically about how trust structures can help blended families protect everyone they love. If there's one thing we want you to take away today, don't assume your estate plan is working just because you have one. In a blended family, the details matter, and the details live in the documents.
If you'd like to sit down with us and do a full review of your specific situation, we'd love to help. The link to book a complimentary Connect call with White Oak Planning is in the description. Share this one. It might be the most important video someone you know watches this year. We'll see you next time.